This is the Holocaust of our day. This is our civil rights issue. And the longer we tolerate the slaughter of the unborn, the sooner we will wake up and find that we are now being defined as Lebens Unwertensleben, Untermensch, unwanted, or to quote the President of the United States, the greatest and most extreme threat to freedom and democracy.
Welcome, everybody, to Conversations That Matter. I'm your host, Alex Newman. A very special guest joining us today. His name is Seth Gruber. He is the founder of the White Rose Resistance, and what they do is not so much fight Nazis per se anymore, but they now try to protect the unborn, who, of course, are being dehumanized and killed in massive numbers all across America and beyond. Seth has been helping to save unborn children since before he was born in his mother's womb. His mom was actually working at a pregnancy resource center in LA, and then she stepped down to embrace her full-time job as mom. He's been very active in pro-life causes. In college, he founded an organization there and got the try to move the university in that direction. He's given hundreds of speeches. He's spoken to over 500,000 people. He's got a very popular podcast with hundreds of episodes under his belt, and he has launched pro-life ministries at churches all across Southern California. Seth, welcome to the program. Thank you so much for joining us. Before we get into kind of what you do, let's talk about the White Rose Resistance. I think there's a lot of people out there who, maybe didn't get a great education, a comprehensive education. They don't even know what that means. Why White Rose Resistance?
Yeah, well, Alex, thank you for having me on. It's good to meet you in person at CNP earlier this month, and we'll be at a conference together at the end of March. So you made a funny comment earlier. We're not so much fighting Nazis today as much as trying to save the preborn, but in a sort of real way, we kind of are. If you're a student of history, you'll understand, brothers and sisters, that the ideology and religion of humanism, Marxism, Darwinism, overpopulationism, whatever you want to call it, it's all the same thing. And two, it goes back a long, long way. And we're just living through kind of the new iterations of eugenics and humanism and those high pontiffs of humanism who believe themselves to be God and can decide who gets to live and who gets to die. So listen, it was the Jews then, it's preborn babies today. And now we're noticing, aren't we, Alex, how the religion of secular humanism, the real state religion in America today, the only acceptable theocracy in America today, how they're now shifting their language very intentionally, whether it's Karine Jean-Pierre, Biden's White House press secretary, who replaced Circleback Psaki, or whether it's Biden last fall with the USSR red bloodstained backdrop where he smeared half the country as domestic terrorists, or whether it's Merrick Garland arresting pro-life sidewalk counselors and opening up in domestic terrorist investigations into the mama bears and papa bears who spoke at school board meetings. We could go on and on and on, couldn't we, together, Alex? We're watching this linguistic shift now to begin labeling conservatives, Christians, pro-life advocates as unwanted, undesirable, less than human, Lebens Unwertensleben, life unworthy of life, Untermensch, which, by the way, so let me now kind of connect it back to your question. I like to go 60,000 feet when I'm asked a question and then try to zoom back in. Right, Untermensch, absolutely, Alex. So the title of Heinrich Himmler's famous propaganda book. However, Margaret Sanger, the high pontiff of humanism and the patron saint of feminism and the founder of the American Birth Control League, later renamed Planned Parenthood, had a board member by the name of Lothrop Stoddard. Now, Lothrop Stoddard was a high official of the Massachusetts Ku Klux Klan. Lothrop Stoddard wrote a book called The Rising Tide of Color Against White World Supremacy. Lothrop Stoddard wrote another book, Alex, called The Menace of the Underman, The Menace of the Underman, referring to people he deemed unfit to live, right? Blacks, Jews, Slavs, whatever, the mentally and physically unfit. And Adolf Hitler's chief racial theorist, Alfred Rosenberg, appropriates the German term Untermensch from the English word underman. Guys, the Nazis got the term Untermensch from the English version of Margaret Sanger's board member's book. So one of the board members of Planned Parenthood gave the Nazis the German word subhuman, Untermensch, used to describe the Jews. So in a very real way, we actually are still fighting Nazis. They're far more clever and sinister and effective, and are blinded Americans to their true eugenics motivations. And so you had some young 20 somethings in not 1942 and 1943 Germany begin developing Christian resistance and activism against Hitler and the Nazis, and they called themselves the White Rose Resistance. And so in 1942, a young 21-year-old named Sophie Scholl, Alex, picks up this thing she sees on the sidewalk, and it says Leaflets of the White Rose. And she starts reading it, and it's condemning the crimes of the Nazis. It's asking good people to wake up. They said things like, if you know, why do you not act? It's so simple. And she reads this, Alex, and she's thinking, this sounds a lot like my brother. He talks like this a lot. Well, come to find out, not only had the White Rose been co-founded, but it was being run by none other than her older brother, Hans. So she becomes the youngest member and the only female member of the White Rose Resistance in that Munich chapter, although their courage spawned other chapters across Germany. So they stay up all night writing, printing, and distributing illegal anti-Nazi leaflets all around major German cities, taking trains in the middle of the night, dropping these things off. And the Nazis, they hated this. Hitler hated this. And so in 1943, they took things to the next level. And we actually just had the 80th anniversary of this, Alex. We did a whole big thing on my social media. On February 18th, 1943, 80 years ago, Hans and Sophie, brother and sister, walk onto the campus at the University of Munich. And while class is in session and the halls are quiet, they begin to drop off piles of their illegal leaflets all across the university. And then in this final iconic act, 21-year-old Sophie walks to the third floor balcony, and she tosses an entire stack of leaflets down to the atrium below. Well, the janitor, a committed Nazi, catches Hans and Sophie in the act, calls the Gestapo, has them arrested on February 18th, 1943. They spend 4 days in jail, and on February 22nd, 1943, 5 days ago, 80 years ago, they're taken to the guillotine and they have their heads chopped off. And Sophie spoke with some of the most moral clarity that was lost on most of the German pulpits. And at 21, she understood that, quote, the real damage is caused by all of those millions who just want to survive, the honest men and women who just want to be left in peace, and those who don't want their little lives disturbed by anything bigger than themselves, those with no sides and no causes, those who won't take measure of their own strength for fear of antagonizing their own weaknesses, those who don't like to make waves or enemies, those for whom freedom, honor, truth, and principle are only literature, those who live small, die small, she said. She said it's the reductionistic approach to life, Alex, because if you keep it small, you'll keep it under control. If you don't make any noise, the boogeyman won't find you. FBI, Department of Homeland Security. But she said it's all an illusion because they die too. Those people who roll up their spirits into tiny little balls so as to be safe. Safe from what? Life is always on the edge of death. Narrow streets lead to the same place as wide avenues, and a little candle burns itself out just like the flaming torch does. I choose my own way to burn. 21 years old. Who talks like that? So they're murdered on February 22nd, 1943, 80 years ago. So we are rebuilding the White Rose Resistance, Alex, for this generation against our silent but far more deadly Holocaust of abortion, to build the army of Christian resistance against the culture of death that Hans and Sophie dreamed of but never saw realized. The reason we think Hans and Sophie brave and courageous, Alex, is because they sacrificed far more with far less freedom to stand against their Holocaust than we have ever done to stand against ours. This is the Holocaust of our day. This is our civil rights issue. And the longer we tolerate the slaughter of the unborn, the sooner we will wake up and find that we are now being defined as Lebensunwertensleben, Untermensch, unwanted, or to quote the President of the United States, the greatest and most extreme threat to freedom and democracy.
That is powerful stuff, Seth. And, the parallels are there. How many individuals have we seen have their doors kicked in by the FBI, their kids held at gunpoint because maybe they were praying outside of an abortion clinic too vociferously. Meanwhile, terrorists can burn down pregnancy resource centers. They can attack pro-life organizations with fire bombs. And no, we don't see anything here. It's really crazy. Seth, we're going to go to break real quick. When we get back, I want to discuss tactics with you. How does the White Rose Resistance believe we should end this horrific mass slaughter of unborn babies across America? Folks, stay tuned. We're going to be right back.
I certainly would not want a constitutional convention. I mean, whoa. Who knows what would come out of that?
It isn't the Constitution that's the problem. It is the people who ignore the Constitution.
What we need are just more people that would read the one we have.
It's up to us to hold our elected officials accountable,
who understand the Constitution and are willing to take a stand when necessary.
Before we went to break, you just gave an incredibly eloquent, beautiful explanation of the parallels between the horrors happening in our country today and what was happening in Nazi Germany. The difference being that there are millions more individuals being slaughtered today than were slaughtered in Germany. How do we stop this? The Supreme Court has now struck down Roe versus Wade. I've heard different opinions from people on the pro-life side saying, well, it was good. Well, now they just allow states to vote democratically on whether we keep killing babies. In your view, what is the best approach to stopping this?
Well, this is a real Kairos moment, isn't it? We were told this would never happen, Alex, right? I'm 31. You look maybe not that much older than me. Our generation was told, fat chance, get used to it, settled law, constitutionally decided, give up. That we were told that this was the sacred cow, right, of humanism. This was something that was never going to get overturned. Not only did we win a massive victory in the culture war, but we overturned the one thing that we were told growing up would never happen. So I think it's a lesson that we're far more powerful than we think. We need only act, we need only speak, we need only stand. We need only be as zealous for righteousness as the left has been for wickedness, right? We need only wield the reins of political power with the same gusto that the left has been doing for, 200 years. The left has been upending society for really all of human history, right? So it's the same religion. It's religion of humanism, the religion of self, whatever you want to call it. But I don't know when it happened, Alex, perhaps just before the sexual revolution. I'm not exactly sure when, but at some point the pulpits went silent. The good people shut up. And we were tricked into this lie of the Johnson Amendment. And the devil has used that to silence and castrate the voice of Christians more than anything else that I have seen in recent memory. We won't contend against any demonic ideology simply because the other side defines them as political. And so, wow, what a political win, though, to have Roe v. Wade overturned. So the church better start waking up and demanding from their elected representatives the total abolition of abortion at the state level. If you say you're pro-life and you're happy with the current status quo, let me just say something. You're not pro-life. There's nothing just or pro-life about saying, yay, babies in South Dakota won't be lynched. And so they'll just all go to California or New York or Washington or Oregon or Maine or wherever it is. And so this is a real significant moment. And the left knows this as well, Alex, which is why they're pushing the abortion pill like we have never seen them push it before, because cheap to manufacture, sell at high margins, no brick and mortar abortion centers, don't have to pay your abortion staff, don't have to pay the third party vendors that come and take away the mutilated aborted children, because you can use the American sewage system as your abortion disposal system. This is incredibly profitable new venture for the abortion industry. About 50% of all abortions are currently being used through the abortion pill, and that was 2 or 3 years ago. So their intention is to make the abortion pill the new horizon. Here's another Nazi connection, Alex. Your listeners will appreciate this. Just understand it's been the same enemy the whole time. The abortion pill, which is again what they're all about right now. You know what it's called, Alex. It's called RU 486. RU 486. Okay, what does RU stand for? Well, it refers to the name of the company that originally manufactured the abortion pill, Roussel Uclof, Roussel Uclof. Okay, now Roussel Uclof has a majority shareholder. Their majority shareholder is Hoechst AG. Hoechst AG, Alex, emerged from the breakup of a German chemical company known as IG Farben. The German chemical company infamous for creating a cyanide gas known as Zyklon B. the gas used to murder Jews in Nazi concentration camps. So, brother, Hook's AG simply moved from creating poison to murder Jews to creating poison to murder babies. So again, there's another Nazi connection, but this is what they're pushing now. And they're putting it in Walgreens, they're putting it in pharmacies, and they're shipping it to women's mailboxes, because one of the first things the Biden administration did was get rid of the regulations requiring in-person evaluations. So now you can ship it through the American Postal Service. It's literally mail order murder. So this is what we're contending against. So if we don't have pro-life Republicans who are willing to write and pass legislation with teeth in the bill, Alex, then we're going to lose this. Because South Dakota, for example, I mean, what a wonderful pro-life state. Unless they pass legislation with teeth that goes after the people shipping the abortion pills into their state, then as long as you're under 10 weeks gestation, in a pro-life state that has banned abortion, you as a young woman can simply jump on a pill mill website, order them. They usually get sent from India, and they arrive in the mailbox of where you reside in a pro-life state. So yes, these pro-life laws are saving babies. Of course they are. They're saving many babies who would have been killed through surgical abortion otherwise. But if it's at an early enough stage, they just ship the abortion pills right into the pro-life state. So what's the strategy here? Well, one of the goals of the White Rose Resistance is to educate the public and inspire a movement in the church. If you're a student of history, whether you're a Christian or not, if you're listening, if you're a student of history, you understand that Western civilization is Judeo-Christian civilization. So most of the people who say, hey, ho, ho, Western civ has got to go, most of those people who say they hate Christianity wouldn't want to live in an America without Christianity. Humanism is not progressive. It's very regressive. The ideas being pushed by the left and proposed by the left right now, Alex, are nothing new. They're actually more ancient than the ideas of our revolutionary founding fathers. There's nothing progressive about progressivism. As C.S. Lewis says, we all want progress, but if you're on the wrong road, progress means doing an about turn and walking back to the right road. In that case, the man who turns back soonest is the most progressive. So the people realizing the rotten promises of humanism and leftism and progressivism and are turning around to find their way back to human flourishing, they are actually the progressives. But again, welcome to the linguistic gymnastics of leftism. So we have to understand these ideas being proposed, they're not progressive. They're very ancient. Child killing, child sacrifice goes back to the first generations immediately following Adam and Eve, okay? To the sun gods, the weather gods, the sex gods, the crop gods to receive a blessing. And we sacrifice our babies to the pagan gods of education, money, and career well-being. But it's still demon worship. And Tezcatlipoca, the Aztec sun god, is not going to smile on Elizabeth Warren and Bernie Sanders for sacrificing up our children. She's going to demand more bloodshed. And before she burns up the earth. So give me your babies, overpopulation, you're harming the environment. I mean, all of the weird talking points of the left, they're so ancient and old. And so we have to understand the kind of beast that we're actually contending against. And so we tell these stories, we explain where these ideas come from to mobilize and awaken the church. Because if the church realizes that the culture war and the political warfare, it was always a proxy war for a deeper spiritual war, then maybe we can wake up the bride of Christ, the sleeping lion in America, the most powerful organism for change that built this country, that brought us the idea of human equality and the Imago Dei and natural rights. If we can wake up the bride of Christ again to realize that when you refuse to engage in the culture wars and when you refuse to engage in politics, you are actually refusing to engage against spiritual principalities in the high places that masqueraded as politics to keep the politically impotent pastor silent. We need more Pastor Rob McCoys, more Pastor Jack Hibbs to lead the church back into standing for righteousness in the public square, to love our neighbors who are the victims of legislation and the victims of ideologies and the victims of bad laws, to give God a reason to show America mercy. In the Psalms, it talks about how because God's people were sacrificing their sons and daughters to demons, Alex, it says he gave them over to be ruled by those who hate them. We are being ruled by people who hate the church right now in America. And I don't think it's beyond the pale to suggest that it's because we have also been sacrificing our sons and daughters to demons. The land is desecrated with blood. And now we're watching the victimization of children become the norm. It's becoming acceptable in our political discourse. So it shouldn't surprise you guys that Planned Parenthood is one of the biggest providers of puberty blockers and cross-sex hormones, right? Transgenderism is the next iteration of destroying children. And if we can't stand for our own children simply because the ideas targeting them are political, then to quote Abraham Lincoln, we've lost the genius of our own independence and will be a sucker for the first would-be tyrant with his utopian promises that rises amongst us. We need to return to the ideas of self-government, the idea of stewardship and exercising dominion, to be as passionate for the truth as the left has been for wickedness. From a 60,000-foot view, when you look at all the laws and you recognize the madness, it's the church that is going to decide whether we descend back into the despotic chapters of human history, or if we have what Abraham Lincoln called a new birth of freedom.
Absolutely beautifully stated, Seth. How would people get involved? Obviously, they can go to your website. How do people follow you? How do people listen to your podcast? And how do people get involved with the White Rose Resistance?
Yeah, thank you, Alex. So we're raising up a team right now. We're hiring quickly, but the goal, of course, being is mobilizing godly men and women at the local level to push back, to take action, to do something, and to provide the training and mobilization and lanes for people to jump into at their local level to push back. Number one response I get at church is, Seth, what do I do? Right? We want to be able to mobilize people in a real way. I listen, I'm on board with everything you're doing, Alex. Charlie, everyone, we're all fighting these same battles, right? The same war. But I always have to remind the conservative movement, lest we forget that we're in this position because of how long we've tolerated child sacrifice, right? That's sort of the litmus test of the republic, whether we take these ideas of human rights seriously or not. And so downstream from that, we're now fighting to preserve these other freedoms and liberties because of our toleration of destroying the right to life for 50 years. So unless we turn that around, the conservative movement will wake up and find that they have nothing left to conserve. So if you want to get on board with that, go to thewhiterose.life, www.thewhiterose.life. We're looking for $35 a month donors, real easy. Most people can do it. That's how we're building that massive army of allies. And then we do a monthly call with our allies to pour back into our donors to make them pro-life ninjas, right? To just flipping around, demolishing abortion bigotry wherever they find it. My Instagram is Seth Gruber Official. You got to type in the whole username because they're blocking me. And then when you press follow, it'll say, are you sure you want to follow this guy? So Seth Gruber Official. The podcast is unaborted with Seth Gruber because we're all unaborted. Or to quote Reagan, I've noticed everyone who's for abortion has already been born. And so we have about 275 episodes, interviews with incredible people: Kirk Cameron, Charlie Kirk, Rob McCoy, Jack Hibbs, Nick Vujicic, Monica Klein, Melissa Ohden, abortion survivors, people fighting the crazy sex ed. And so that's a fire hose ideas and tools to get you mobilized. And then my website, sethgruber.com. I speak all around the country. We're doing 40 events between January and May alone. And we're trying to mobilize and get people engaged to do something. Stop treating your responsibility to the culture of death, man or woman, as only writing a check to that conservative organization you really like. Of course, we can't exist without your giving. Thank you. That's the first step. But we're contending against wickedness that's so hard to put into words, Alex. People who would not hesitate to throw us into gulags because we believe babies in the wombs are persons and should not be murdered. We believe that consent to sex is consent to pregnancy, and you made that choice when you got in bed. Who believe that parents are the primary educators of their children and the only ones who can say they own their children. The state does not own these children. That's what every Marxist and communist has ever believed. And if you can get them while they're young, they'll serve you forever. This is why Planned Parenthood was behind launching the Sexuality Information Education Council of the United States, SIECUS, which is at the helm of producing and writing all of the pornographic sex ed in the schools that brought all the mama bears and papa bears to school board meetings. Look at how all these people are intertwined. They would not hesitate to throw you into gulags. And so, listen, give to Alex, give to me, give to Charlie, give to Turning Point, give. But if you're not going to start taking action and asking yourself, what can I do in my local community to put back, you will raise your grandchildren in gulags. I believe we are so close to being past what Alex has called the Rubicon line. Well, if we're not past it already, we're awful close to it. And so if we don't wake up and start exercising individual responsibility and mandates to go, what my pastor Rob McCoy says, to go upstream from whence these ideas come, to rescue people before they fall into the streams of bad ideas, then this entire American experiment is over. So go to thewhiterose.life. My podcast is unaborted and my website is sethgruber.com. And Alex, so appreciative of your voice as an Ezekiel watchman who's been blowing the trumpet on a lot of this wickedness for a long time.
Seth, I can't tell you how much I appreciate all that you're doing. Thank you so much for joining us today. It's been absolutely incredible. Folks, go check out his website. Go check out his podcast. Extraordinary work that is being done here to preserve the most precious, most innocent lives in our country that are being taken just on an industrial scale. I'm Alex Newman. This is Conversations That Matter. Until next time, thank you and God bless you all.
They say I'm part of a global plan. I don't think so. It's too hot. It's too cold. You know what? The weather changes.
Here's the news, Dad.
Nope. It's hard to tell what's real and what's fake these days.
Ditch the fake news and always get the truth. Go to thenewamerican.com.